In the midnight glow where the stars align, we lose ourselves in the rhythm divine. Underneath the sky painted with dreams we're chasing.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 5. Today, we are going to be looking at the aspects in the chart, which is all of the lines that you see crisscrossing in the middle of your chart. And we talk about the aspects as the way the planets talk to each other, these planets being the characters in your life story and how they communicate with one another. Depending on where they are sitting in the chart, it can be flowing energy where they really get along well, or there can kind of be this push-pull. And that is what the aspects tell us. So we are going to just jump right in, and we're going to start with the major aspects, which are the ones that you're going to see most commonly. They are in most people's charts in one way or another. And the first one is the conjunction. Jody, do you want to start us off with the conjunction?
Yeah. So the conjunction is when two planets are right next to each other, and you kind of think of them as holding hands. They're side by side. So they're roommates sharing the same space, and they influence each other. So for example, if you have Venus, which is how we love, conjunct Pluto, which is all about power, then that might indicate that there's some intense relationships or deep emotional transformation through love. So when the planets are conjunct, they work together as a team. Sometimes that works out great, and sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. You feel the part of your chart strongly. If you have any planets that are right next to each other, they're going to be strongly influencing each other. A tip for this would be to let both planets have their voice. If you feel stuck or confused, write it out, talk about it. One planet may be dominant over the other. So I think really diving into each of those planets and learning what they're about and what they mean is going to help you work through having those two planets together and understand, okay, this is the dominant planet now. Using our example, if you have Venus and Pluto, sometimes you're going to really feel that Pluto and sometimes you're going to really feel that Venus. It's just recognizing it and working with it. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I will say we're going to talk a little bit about orbs, which is the degrees that we include in this description. So next to each planet, you're going to see two sets of numbers. One is the degree and the other is the minute. The minute is much less important in what we're talking about right now. You're looking for the degree, which is usually it's more in bold and there's a little degree circle by it. So you know when you're looking at your chart. We talk about an orb. How far away, how many degrees away can a planet be and still be considered conjunct? And we'll talk about orbs for every single one of these placements. So you know clearly when you're looking at a chart. And for conjunction, and I will say too, depends on the astrologer and the type of astrology that they practice. Everyone kind of has their own little window they talk about for an orb, but it's pretty commonly considered 0 to 10 degrees as a conjunction. We put a pretty wide orb on a conjunction. When they're within that 10-degree mark on either side of each other, they do pull in the energy of each other. And like you said, Jody, sometimes it's very hard for us to separate them out and understand them as separate energies. Most people, I would think their sun is the most powerful or the biggest energy in the chart. And, you know, the sun has the sun in the size and incredibly bright. It's our core personality, etc. But if it is conjunct or very close to a big, powerful planet, not big in size, but big in energy like Pluto, that Pluto is almost going to overtake the sun and it's going to be incredibly influential on you and your core personality. So these are pretty important things to pay attention to. And then once you get to something that we call a stellium, which is 3 or 4, there's an argument there among astrologers as well, whether it's 3 planets in a sign or house or 4 or more. There's a debate, but I tend to use 3 or more because the energies start to really pile up. So 3 or more planets in a sign or house becomes a stellium. And now that energy really starts to amp up in that particular area and kind of get all blended together. So doing the work yourself on understanding that and kind of separating them out, and you'll start to hear their voices a little more individually. But it is very much often the stelliums or conjunctions define life themes, really can indicate your soul mission or like a power center in your chart for sure.
Yes, I agree. And with the orbs, I tend to use 8 to 10. Just keep in mind, the closer together they are, the more you're going to feel it. So if you have Pluto and Sun both at 13 degrees, that's going to be pretty intense versus if you have your Sun at 13 degrees and Pluto at 23 degrees.
Yes, absolutely. Across the board, the closer, the more potent it is going to be. Yeah, with every single one of these ones. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so the next one we have is an opposition. As you would imagine, it means a planet that is directly across 180 degrees across from another. And the kind of orb range that people usually give to this is from 6 degrees to 10 degrees as the max, right? So 0 to 6 or 0 to 10, there's some flex there depending on how you practice astrology. Opposition is basically, it's a tension, it's a polarity. So there's this push-pull between these two energies. It's duality and kind of a tug of war. Ultimately, what the planets are asking for is for you to understand the balance between the two. I kind of always picture somebody standing in the middle of a teeter-totter by themselves, right? And they're just they're playing this balancing game to keep their equilibrium on this teeter-totter. And that's kind of the way I picture the oppositions. You're kind of trying to give to both. Some of the benefits of having an opposition, though, are awareness. It brings awareness to these planets, like a mirror for soul work. Because they are directly across from each other, there's a little piece that mirrors in the other. And they really when they find symbiosis, it's actually a really beautiful thing. Oppositions can be, but they tend to be places where we pay attention, because I will say that too, the more difficult aspects, or the ones that create tension, are what get attention, versus the flowing and easy aspects we tend to ignore, or we just take them for granted. And we'll get into that later. Like, those truly can be your gifts. And sometimes you're thinking like, oh, well, everybody knows how to do that. Well, that's not necessarily true. That's your special gift. An example maybe would be moon opposite Saturn would be a struggle between emotional needs and duty and your work and what you're called to accomplish. But yet emotionally, you want rest and retreat. Or Mars opposite Neptune could be a challenge integrating drive with spiritual sensitivity, right? So you're learning to stand in the middle of those two and hold them both equally.
Then next we have the square, which is 90 degrees apart. In a square is tension. The planets are in a little bit of a tension war, like siblings arguing over what to do next. The example would be, like Mara used before, Mars is our action, squaring Neptune, which is dreams. You may want to get things done, but you feel confused on how to do that. So when that tension is there, it's meant to be uncomfortable, because we're supposed to learn and grow from it and make those needed changes, set those needed boundaries, or change the things that we're meant to process through and change, so that those squares or those tension aspects don't feel so hard. And most of us who have squares in our chart, when you're younger, you feel them more, but then get older and wiser, hopefully. And we learn and we make different decisions, and maybe we check our ego and we realize that we need to just do the work that's needed to relieve that tension between those squares. You might feel blocked or frustrated. People who have a square between their sun and their moon, so your sun is your identity, it's how you shine, and your moon is your emotions. So if you're a person who has this, which I do, so I can speak from it, it is that tension. It is tension between your emotions and your feelings and how you shine and how you put yourself out there. It's just finding what works for you to help relieve that tension. And diamonds are built under pressure, right? So
Yeah,
bring great change.
honestly, I find myself grateful for the more difficult aspects in my chart, because they have become my greatest teachers. I really do send gratitude to, it sounds crazy when I say it out loud, but I send gratitude to difficulty at this point in my life, because I've come to understand what it is. And that is actually a gift. And I'm going to talk about that a lot on this podcast. It's a big theme. And it's something that I feel like in society, we do not hear that message. We are all trying to run away from pain, run away from difficulty. Ultimately, we want joy and ease. Everything's going great all the time. And that's not why we signed up to come to this planet. It's a yes and, right? We came here for the joy. We came here for full embodiment and bliss and laughter and all of that. But also, we did come for the lessons and to grow and mature and evolve. These are not things to be afraid of. I'm going to say that a lot too. These are not things to be afraid of. There are things that we can bring awareness to and send love and gratitude to, and try to incorporate and understand ourselves better. In the square, I'm not sure if we mentioned the orb. It's 90 degrees. 90 degrees is a square. So you can count 3 signs away from wherever the planet is. And then that's where the square would be. And those energies compared to the opposition, which you see as a mirror held up and it's asking for balance, and you see a little bit of each other in those. These guys in the square don't get each other at all. They are completely like, I don't get you. I don't understand you. There's really no mirror element here. They just are frustrated because they're like, I don't understand. It's like that friend or relative that you're just like, I do not get how this person thinks at all. We could not be more different in our personality. And I'm trying to get along, but I don't get you. That's the feeling that I get. And the orb on this one too is max orb of 6 to 8 degrees. And again, the closer, the stronger it is.
With yourself with squares, because again, they're meant to be uncomfortable. So we change. Like you talked earlier, and one of the other aspects, easy aspects don't create change and growth. It's too comfortable. It's too easy. So we just stay stuck. The square is here to teach us the lesson, help us learn and move through it.
Yes. And I will say, when I do a reading, there's so much to look at and so much to talk to someone about. I tend to focus on the difficult aspects, the squares, the oppositions, etc., because that's what is probably going to be the pain points, the problem areas, the difficulty, the things that need to be incorporated. I might touch on the more flowing aspects, but people are typically pretty well aware of that energy and it's already in flow. So I'm going to talk about the more difficult things, but in an empowering way that helps you work with them.
Yeah. Typically people come to us for guidance on how to understand or make the changes that need to happen or that they want. And the birth chart is like a roadmap. So it's kind of like a cheat sheet. It helps us see things that maybe are hard to really understand until you get a little bit of a hint like, oh, well, maybe it's an internal battle between you and your emotions. So.
Right. And we can even point to that as astrologers in the chart. We know which kind of houses and areas tend to even be hidden from the person themselves. So seeing that in the roadmap really helps us deliver that to our clients and kind of have those aha moments, those light bulb moments, which are my absolute favorite. When I'm working with a client, I love that moment when they go, oh, that makes so much sense now. Okay, so onto a flowing energy, the trine. These are always a blessing. Trines are energies that really get along and flow. And this is kind of where our natural talents lie. A trine is 120 degrees away with an orb, again, max 6 to 8 degrees. They will be then typically in the same element. You can get a trine by orb. That's maybe trining by house or slightly out of sign. But typically, your trines are going to have the same element. So as you can imagine, with the element, they have a similarity and a flow between them. So these are your natural gifts. There's grace, ease here, and inherited soul strengths. We tend to not really pay attention to them because it's something that's already going well. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, doesn't it? So if it's not squeaking, we're probably not paying attention. But it's a really cool thing to look at in your chart and to really hone and use the gift of your trines because they are your natural God-given abilities. And you might go like, well, everybody can do that. Like I said earlier, everybody can paint like this or, fill in the blank with your own personal gift. No, they can't. Right? Like that is something special that you have. So really the purpose of understanding trines is to consciously engage with your gifts. Some examples, Sun trine Jupiter would be someone who's optimistic, generous, and expansive because you can take those energies and blend them in a really harmonious way and they're working beautifully together. Mercury trine Uranus would be potentially a genius mind and someone inventive in the way they communicate, etc. So do you have anything you want to add on to trines?
It is a natural talent. So really embrace it. And like you said, I think people don't realize it and they, in a sense, take it for granted because you're just like, it's easy. Yeah, really tapping into it and using it to do something great. Because if you have a Grand Trine, whether it's in earth, air, fire, or water, it's definitely a gift.
Yes. And we are going to get to, she just said Grand Trine, and some of you are going, what is that?
Sorry, I jumped right ahead.
We're going to jump into aspect patterns after we get done with the aspects, that some of them create patterns that we see pop up in the chart, and they have their own kind of special meaning. And we will explain to you what that is here shortly.
All right. Next, we have sextile, which is 60 degrees apart. And I kind of have a general orb I take. So I don't know if you have one. I'm going to say 8 to 10.
Okay. Typically, I start narrowing my orbs the smaller the aspect or the rarer the aspect, especially as we get into the more the minor aspects. So I would take an orb of maybe up to 6 degrees on a sextile.
Okay. So sextiles are planets that get along, but you have to do something to activate them, to activate that magic. An example would be the moon. Again, the moon is our feelings. Sextile Venus. Venus is our love. So you're kind and caring, but only if you choose to open up. So that would be how sextiles work. It's a gentle opportunity. With a little effort, we can grow into something great. So again, using it as a strength. Say yes to chances that feel aligned. These aspects respond well to action, curiosity, and creativity. Anything to add?
Yeah, I love the way that you put that actually. And I kind of think of sextiles as an open door, but you have to choose to walk through it. You have to choose to notice it and choose to walk through it. It's not as automatic or flowing necessarily as a trine, which is kind of just happening regardless. This one you have to go, okay, I see that and I'm choosing to do something about it. So you can develop talents through choice and engagement with sextiles. Okay, so those are the major aspects. We call them the major aspects because they are the most prominent, the ones you see the most often, and they have the strongest energy. And now we're going to get into some minor aspects, and we're going to hit on 4 different minor aspects. And at the very end of that, I'm just going to briefly talk about there are some rare and advanced ones that are really, really minor aspects. We're not going to get into all of those today because, again, they're pretty advanced and you probably have plenty to look at just with what we go over here. But I want you to know that they exist. They're out there. Okay, so minor aspects. We're going to talk about the very first minor aspect. The first one is a quincunx, or sometimes it is called an inconjunct. It is 150 degrees. If you're looking at your chart and you look at an opposition, that's 180 degrees. Basically, move over a sign. So there's an opposition and then you bump over a sign on either side. And that's an inconjunct. And it's an awkward energy is the way I would describe it. It needs adjustment. It feels kind of like misunderstood parts of yourself are trying to work together, but they don't really get each other. It's not as abrasive as a square, but it is awkward. And sometimes through transit, we talk about these things kind of being like shocking revelations or something abruptly coming about. And you're like, oh, I did not expect that. The unexpected kind of. It can be a little disjointed and uncomfortable. Sometimes it's mental strain. Sometimes it's health issues. It's all about being aware of it, as we keep talking about, and then recalibration and realignment and learning to kind of gracefully understand these parts and incorporate them together. Yeah, I think that's all I have for quincunx. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would just add a tip I have here. So the aspect calls for flexibility, maturity. It's not about fixing, it's about growing through the contrast.
Yeah. I would take that sentence and apply it to all of this.
Yeah,
None of this is about fixing yourself, right? You truly are perfect as you are. And yet there are things that we can grow through and get better at, but it's not fixing. I really like the way you put that.
And that applies to others. So if you dive into something like synastry, where you're looking at your chart versus someone else's, sometimes I think it's human nature to go into how can I fix this person? How can I understand them and work with the differences that each of you have? And that goes the same for your planets. Like your planets have different relationships, just like we do with people. It's just a great way to see into ourselves and others and give tips on how to work with it.
Yes.
All right. So semi-sextile, which is 30 degrees apart. And what kind of orb would you suggest for this?
I honestly like a 1 to 2 degree orb for this. This is pretty close. And I will say a cool way to kind of remember semi-sextile and semi-square, which is the next one I'm going to cover, is the degree. It splits in half what a sextile would be or what a square would be. So the semi, it just take that degree and split it in half. So a sextile is 60 degrees, a semi-sextile is 30, a square is 90, a semi-square is 45. I'd take a pretty small orb on this one.
So when you have a semi-sextile, the planets are side by side, but they don't blend easily. So think of them like neighbors with different routines. So for example, Venus again, our planet of love, semi-sextile to Mercury, the mind and communication, you might struggle with putting feelings into words. So there's some subtle friction between these planets, maybe a blind spot or a quiet lesion that shows up in daily habits. So notice the small stuff. These aspects are soft but persistent. They're here to build awareness over time. Anything to add?
I think that covered it, honestly. On to the semi-square, 45 degrees. And I would take a 1 to 2 degree orb on this because these minor aspects, they get more and more subtle. So you kind of need need them to be close to show up, I feel like. So the theme for a semi-square would be inner friction, tension, and discomfort. A lot of times these can provoke anxiety or restlessness or impatience. It's not going to be quite as abrasive as a square would be, but it definitely is just like this little nagging thing. It's really calling attention to an unconscious block. So it's an invitation for the soul to resolve dissonance through mindful effort. It's almost experienced as like a low level stress or static in the psyche. So it might not be a super obvious thing. It's just this kind of low hum of irritation, which again, if you understand astrology, you understand your chart, you can kind of have that moment of like, oh, that does always bug me, actually. So that's a semi-square.
So next we have the quintile, which is 72 degrees apart. This is a creative, magical connection. An example again, Mercury, the mind, quintile with Neptune, which is our dreams. So you have poetic thoughts or speak with spiritual wisdom. This quintile is a special gift, something intuitive, unique, and even genius. So trust your instincts. These talents might feel weird and hard to explain, but they're part of your soul's brilliance. Anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think quintiles are a rare aspect. You don't see a ton of them, but they really do point to kind of this like divine creativity, magical insight, intuitive knowing. A lot of artists and creatives have quintiles. So it's a fun thing to look for actually in the chart. That 72 degrees. It's just a kind of a quirky energy, but there's a gift there for sure. So that's a fun one to look for. You can look at a lot of different artists and celebrities charts and find quintiles. So that's the last of the minor aspects that we're going to go over. There's some really rare and advanced ones like septiles, biquintiles, sesquiquadrant, and the list goes on. And if you want to do deeper dive on those, there's a ton of information online for it, but we're not going to go that deep here today. But we are going to hit on some aspect patterns. The aspects that we've gone over, they can create patterns, geometric patterns in the chart that are pretty obvious and pop out to you. One of the most obvious, and I would say most common, is the Grand Trine that Jody mentioned earlier. That is 3 planets in trine. They form a triangle in the chart. You literally can see it. And it is 3 trines. Also, typically, Grand Trines are in the same element, and they have a real ease and flow, no matter what element they're in. There's harmony and inner peace there, a natural strength, a confidence, creative ease, innate gifts. But again, same as with the trines, especially with a Grand Trine, because it amplifies that so much, there's a tendency towards complacency around these gifts and some passivity or underachievement, maybe even in that area, because it's so flowing and it's happening automatically. So it's not getting your attention. Ultimately, using that element with purpose and generosity and turning it into a contribution to the world. It's really, like I said, you're kind of your God-given gifts that you are here to give to the world. So it's a really cool thing to hone in on and amplify in your chart and really bring to the forefront.
Yes, I agree. And just for fun, real quick, I'm going to give some examples of the 4 different elements. So if you have a Grand Trine in fire, then you're going to be confident, energetic, creative, and a natural leader. Grand Trine in earth, you're going to be grounded, responsible, practical, great at building things. Grand Trine in air, you're going to be smart, social, good communicator, big picture thinker. And a Grand Trine in water, you're going to be intuitive, emotional, compassionate, creative.
Yeah, thanks for doing the examples.
All right, next we have the T-square, which is 2 squares in 1 opposition. So 2 planets are in conflict and both of them are challenged by that 3rd planet. So think of, it's a type of a triangle. I don't know what kind of triangle you would call that.
I don't know either. I do not know my geometry well enough to tell you what type of a triangle that is. It's a squatty long one.
Right. So the 3rd planet is the apex. So example, if you have Moon opposite of Mercury, both squaring Saturn, this would be emotional blocks around communication. That's Moon, your emotions, Mercury, communication. Saturn is going to be where the blocks or the tension comes in there. What it means is there's pressure and tension, but also a breakthrough point. Focus on the apex planet. It holds the key to transformation and growth. So there is a release point. So when you focus on that, you can release that tension of that T-square.
So now we have the yod, or it's sometimes also called the finger of God. So that's going to be two quincunxes, or that inconjunct. Remember, that's 150 degrees. So that 180 is directly across, then it's a sine over, and then a sine over on the other side. So we've got a sextile between those two, because a sextile is 60 degrees. So that's two sines apart. So as you can imagine in your mind, as that we're kind of drawing this in your mind, it's a really tall, pointy triangle. We're creating more triangles here. This is kind of the opposite of the squish triangle. Whoever is a mathematician and listening to this, they are eye rolling so hard right now. Because
you can email us the correct names.
Yeah, for real. We are astrologers. We are not mathematicians, obviously. So you have the point of this triangle, that the very top of this long triangle, and it is forming two quincunxes to these other two planets, and then they sextile one another. This is kind of indicating a divine mission or a soul assignment. There really can be soul gifts and mystical attunement, profound insight with this. And the apex point, the tip, is really, again, that kind of release point, or the point that we're really looking at, because it has these two, if you remember, we were talked about in the inconjunct or the quincunx, it's kind of this awkward energies. It doesn't really understand, but those two are in sextile. So they're talking to each other. There's a door open that we have to walk through, right? We have to choose. And so when we choose to walk through that door and understand that sextile better, then that starts to talk to the apex point, and it's all starts to flow. And we're coming into more of a divine understanding. Sometimes there's a spiritual calling involved with this. So it's kind of a rare aspect. I have not seen a lot of them personally, and it tends to be associated with something sacred. There's a spiritual element to this, thus the finger of God as one of the names. And it suggests otherworldly purpose that unfolds on our earthly plane, something that you signed up for before coming into this world. But it can be confusing and even be hidden from yourself if you have this aspect. It can be very confusing, especially when you're younger and before you kind of have knowledge around it and start incorporating it and working with it, or even can be hidden from yourself. There's this kind of the sense of it being veiled or, sort of mystical, and really needs attention to incorporate, is the best way I can describe it. What do you think? Do you have anything you add to that?
I would definitely agree. I think another one of the gifts of astrology is it can help you see this.
Yes.
But it does unfold slowly. So it's something that happens over time and over your lifetime. And my understanding is a very tight orb for a yod. I believe 2 degrees is my understanding.
Yeah, I would have to say the same. Yeah, it's pretty tight because, again, it's rare. So if you have one, it is kind of a big deal. And it's definitely something I would look into more, and the energies around those planets and the signs they're in and the houses they're in and how they talk to one another, and really, really meditate on it and see if you can't understand the message that is there for you.
Right. Take a deep dive into yods if you have one, because there is a big message there, I would say. All right. Next, we have the Grand Cross. So this is when you have 4 squares and 2 oppositions. And that's exactly what it'll look like on your chart. You'll see a square and then you'll see an X through it. They're all 90-degree angles. So if you have your sun square the moon, Mars, and Uranus, this would be like intense pressure to change or choose. So the thing about a Grand Cross is it's kind of that all around tension. So there isn't per se an easy release point, but we can work with anything. I always remind people with a Grand Cross that it's that tension that helps us change and evolve the way that we're supposed to in this life. Learn to center yourself. Once you find your balance, you become a force for transformation. And that's what the Grand Cross is meant to do, is really transform you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that you say center yourself, because I literally pictured standing in the middle of that square, right? You have all of these energies that are vying for your attention and kind of frictioning against one another. And you're standing in the middle, or sitting lotus pose in a Zen, you know what I mean? In meditation, you are holding that center. And for me, a Grand Cross is someone who is kind of a badass soul, honestly, because they signed up for something that is not simple and it's not easy. But really, it's about balance. It's someone who can master many different aspects and different parts of themselves, and they understand that they can hold oppositions and they can hold all of that energy and know this one is equally as important as this one, as this one, as this one. And they stay centered in that. The Grand Cross, I'd say it definitely takes purposeful attention to incorporate. You really have to work at holding that centered place inside of yourself, that balanced place. Okay, next we have the mystical rectangle. So this one also creates a cross in the middle, but it's An oblong, it's a rectangle. It's not a square. So we're not dealing with squares. We are dealing with two oppositions, but then two trines and two sextiles. So this is harmonizing contrast and sacred balance. There's an artistry and grace to the mystical rectangle. There's emotional intelligence here, diplomatic skills. And one of the challenges may be that these gifts go unused unless activated, because again, you're talking about primarily trines and sextiles. Those are flowing energies. Trines is flowing. Sextile is, here's the door open. Do you want to walk through it? But then there's also these oppositions in there, right? Which do need balance. So there's a little bit of friction, but it's primarily flowing energy. So it could be something that gets missed. This definitely is about embodying balance, and it's channeling harmony into the world with intention. There's a subtle mysticism, I think, to it's called a mystical rectangle, so it makes sense. And it's something that's often found in teachers, artists, healers. Yeah, it's actually a really beautiful aspect pattern, I think. Do you want to add anything to that, Jody?
I would just say people with mystic rectangle tend to bring balance where others feel stuck. So it can definitely be a gift that you can bring in.
What a cool gift. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Next, we have the kite. The kite is that grand trine with an opposition, making a kite shape. If you have a trine in Earth with Neptune opposite Jupiter, you have creative potential grounded by purpose. So what it means is you have natural talent plus a driving force that gives it direction. So that trine, remember we talked about how that's easy and beneficial. And then you have that extra little push to give you that direction that you need to move through. So let that tension inspire you. You're meant to fly, but the tail of the kite helps you steer.
Yes. And the tail of the kite is that pressure point or that release point, the point of friction. I think of that as the activator of the trine, right? Because the trine is so flowing and something that we don't really pay attention to. And all of a sudden we have this kind of friction that comes in that activates that, brings it to the forefront. And I think that's a gift. I think the kite is a cool aspect because it really brings that trine to the surface, to a place where you understand it. But there's going to be this little bit of friction that you have to work through, but it's drawing attention to it. Yeah. And that is our last aspect pattern. So we covered all the major aspects, some of the minor aspects, at least the ones that we work with most frequently. Again, you can do some research on all of the rarer ones if you would like. You've got a lot of homework as it is, just what we've gone over. So check out your own charts, see if you have any of these cool aspect patterns in there. And if you've listened to our previous episodes, you can start building the story. We've really layered from the signs to the houses to the planets and now the aspects. And now you can start putting the story together by layering the descriptions of each of those things and understanding how they all speak to one another. And before you know it, you're going to be a pro at reading your chart, and maybe you'll start reading other people's charts.
Yeah, it's kind of catchy.
It is.
Look at yours and you're pulling everybody's, your significant others, your kids, your friends, and then you're like us.
Yes. The bug bit, and we have never recovered. Thankfully, I'm so grateful, so grateful for astrology and what it's brought into my life. Hopefully, we are inspiring all of you as well. And we will catch you all again in 2 weeks.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us under the stars today. We hope you're leaving feeling inspired, grounded, and more connected to your inner truth.
And if you loved this episode, we would be so grateful if you would subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone you love.
If you're ready to explore your soul's path through psychological, evolutionary astrology, and personal astrological coaching, you can find Mari at yoursoulpurposeastrology.com or follow her on Instagram and Facebook at Your Soul Purpose Astrology.
And if you're ready to illuminate your birth chart and explore how essential oils can support your emotional and energetic alignment, you can find Jody at earthandskyessentials.com or at Earth and Sky Essentials on Facebook and Instagram.
And remember, your soul is always guiding you.
The magic starts within.